Alright, good morning. I'm Aaron Heiser of Maker's Weather Supply, and in this video we're going to actually start constructing the Katelynn purse. As a reminder, here's what it looks like. The mystery box configuration we sent it out in natural veg tan so people could dye it the way they wanted. It has some different compartments to it. Of course, there's that flat pocket right there, or front pocket compartment here, and a compartment back here, and then a zippered compartment down the middle. The zipper you'll need to complete this project is just a 9-inch dress zipper. We did not include one in the mystery box kits just because depending on what color you wanted to make this and everything, I almost made this one pink and purple just for the fun of it, but brown zipper definitely wouldn't have matched that very well at all. So anyway, I just wanted to show you this bag is unfinished. I still need to put the clasp on it and finish the edges and stuff on it. But here it is. Here's the exact same bag made out of different leathers. This is just like a wax tan base here, and then this is an acid wash turquoise hair-on for the flap. And in the proper lighting, it looks pretty good, but right now it looks kind of bright. So anyway. There's a few things we need to do now that we have colored our project. We airbrushed it in the last video there. Now we need to put a sealant on it of some sort. I'm going to use Indelible's H2 Overcoat Final Touch. It's just a water-based sealant and protectant. It's really good at bringing out colors and things like that. There's not a ton of color in this. I mean, I did do a two-tone airbrush on it, but anyway, it's going to help to kind of richen the look of it a little bit. So we'll bring the camera down, and I'm going to grab got a stack of rags here and make sure it's kind of clean, and we will just kind of put this on there. So I'm going to move the other pieces out of the way. I need to grab me a piece of paper here to put it underneath my work. I don't want this crap all over my bench. It doesn't hurt the bench, I just don't want to scrape it off later. So, alright. I could have done this with the airbrush. I just never really use sealants in my airbrush. Not something I do, so. And this doesn't make it super shiny by any means, but it will give it a little bit of a sheen. I'll probably do, putting it on this way, I'll probably do 2 coats because it doesn't put them on very thick how I'm kind of rubbing it in. So I'll put on one and let it set for a little bit, and then I'll put on another one. And yeah. So anyway, I'm going to continue doing this, but I'm going to pause the camera because you don't need to watch me do the exact same thing to every single piece here. I will also do it to the natural inside piece that we didn't airbrush, which is the zippered piece. I'll do it to that too, just to kind of protect it from the elements and what might be inside the bag one day. So when I come back, this will be set up and dried, and we'll start construction and edging. Alright, so we got all that done and we let it dry. Now there's a few edges that we need to burnish first, but just because they're going to be hard to reach and things like that later on. So what we need to look at is we have these 2 pieces are identical. One's going to be the back side of the purse, one's going to be the front side of the purse. This piece is going to go right here with a gusset in between, and then this is the flap right here. So the flap is going to end up, we're going to skive just a little bit off the corners. I had my skiver over here yesterday, but I think I put it in a drawer. Just a tiny bit off the corners. It's not much at all, just so that when this is all sewn together, it doesn't have a real large protruding area there. So I got my little skiver out, and there's what I've done right there. I'm going to do it on this corner, and I'm going to do it over here on this corner. There we go. Because we're going to sew that just inside of this. And once we do that, when we have the gusset on there, that can create a real bulky area, and that helps to bring that down. For people that have made a lot of our projects recently, I've done tons of skiving on a lot of projects. You will be happy to know this is all of the skiving that you'll need to do on this project. So, since we're going to sew these two together, we need to finish this edge right here. And since we're going to sew this onto this, I'm going to go ahead and finish the top edges of both of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edge bevel them, I'm going to dye them quickly, and then I'm going to burnish them. And that will finish those edges off and make them pretty for me. Okay, so there's some burnishing stuff. I have a piece of canvas here. Use a Berry King #0 edge beveler or edger, and some dye. I need dye. So I'm going to use the dark color of dye that I used on the rest of the project. Grab me a dauber so I can do this. I need to grab the dye. I left it out there on the dye table. I'll be right back. Alright, got my dye. So, first thing I need to do is take my dauber and make it manageable. It's real fuzzy. I show this on all my videos. I use the dauber. Super fuzzy and lots of loose hairs and stuff on it. So I'm going to take my lighter and I'm going to burn it down. It stinks terribly. If you're in a small area, you may want to go outside to do this. But once you burn it down, it's got this charring all over it. Just put it over your trash can and just knock that off with your finger. Nothing to it. And then when you're done, there's a nice, easily manageable dauber without a bunch of loose fibers and stuff all over it. Really easy to use. So, I need to edge all the edges that I'm going to dye and finish. So there's front and back of that back piece, and I might as well do front and back of the top of the flap. Be very careful where you skive that, because of course that thinner area is a little bit weaker and harder to edge. So there we go, front and back of that, front and back of my pocket piece here. And front and back of my the front piece of my purse. Well, this is actually going to be my niece's purse. I don't need a purse. I've got my man sack from the last video series. Alright, take my dauber that I just burned and my dye here, and I'm just going to dye right along those cut edges. So it does take a steady hand and some practice so that you don't get it all over the place. But there we go. Alright, so there's one piece. Two pieces. Three, and the last one. There we go. So those are done. I'm going to take my dye and my dauber and set them aside. I will use them again later on. So I don't want to throw that dauber away. I mean, they're not that expensive, but if you're just going to use it again in a couple hours, you might as well set it aside and not waste it. Okay, now use some Ron's Edge rub here. I don't know what happened to my applicator. Somebody pushed it down really hard and there we go. Alright, got my Ron's Edge rub here. Wipe off the excess. This stuff is one of those little dabble-do-ya type things. And give it a quick burnish. Looks good, feels smooth. Move on to the next one. I'm going to pause the video so you don't have to watch me individually burnish each of those. Alright, so I got all those edges nicely burnished. And now it is time to start actual construction on this project. We're going to start with putting the flap on the back piece. Okay, so I'm going to grab my ruler that has the 1/8 inch grid on it. Now the flap is going to go underneath the back part. Okay, I built some where it was over it and it just didn't look right, so it's going to be under it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure about 3/8 of an inch from the long edge here, and I'm just going to take my scratch awl and I'm going to draw me a very light, scribe me a very light line right there. And when I glue these two pieces together, that's where the overlap will be. So it'll set just like that. And if we did decent enough on our fade job, it'll kind of go together. Yeah. So grab my glue here, and we'll put some contact cement. Right along that edge. Not too much, you're just holding it in place while we sew it. You definitely don't want it to seep past that line there, because then you'll see it on your finished purse, and that's not cool. Alright, now you don't really have a guideline on the back of this, so you just want to make sure and get it just kind of right on the edge. Okay, and we're going to let those two pieces set up for a little bit until it's time to glue it together. So I'm just going to set that over there. Now I need to grab my little pocket flap here and the smaller of the gusset pieces that came with it. You got 2 larger gusset pieces and 1 smaller gusset piece. And we're going to do kind of the same thing. We're going to go down, and there's no pre-marking that needs to happen. Actually, there is. You can mark the center of the gusset piece. Okay, so I'm going to take a pin and I folded it in half, found my crease area. I'll just take a pin and put a very light mark there. And then I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to measure and find the center of this piece and make a little mark there. Not 100% necessary. We can just start at one side and work our way around, because I did try to get this piece and that piece as lined up as possible when we designed the pattern. A lot of the time, if you've watched some of my videos where you're using gussets, I overcut the gusset and then trim it off later, and that's still a very viable option here, but it shouldn't be too much trimming needed. So I'm going to glue right along the edge, just a 1/4 of an inch or so of this piece. the back side, of course. And then I'm going to glue on the back side of this piece. Just down one edge where it's going to stick to that. Okay. Again, just a 1/4 of an inch or so. You're not going too far. This is only a, I believe, 1 1/4 inch gusset. So you don't want that front pocket to be too huge, but you also don't want to glue it closed. All right, so we will let those two pieces set up for a moment while we glue together the first two pieces, or make them adhere to each other. The first two pieces that we did. All right, so I scribed me a little line there, and I'm just going to start at one end and line the top edge of this piece up with that line. I'll lay it all the way across and flatten it out. Somehow I got a little bit off. I'm going to push it down a little bit. Luckily I hadn't pressed too hard, because this glue's pretty good once it's pressed. Alright, those two pieces are now stuck together. I'll set them aside, and we're going to work our gusset around this piece. And like I said, there's two different ways. We could start in the middle and work our way to the edges, or we can just start at one end and work our way around. Doesn't really matter which way you do it. If you're cutting this and you're not sure of your leather thicknesses and things, the thicker this piece is, the more more of it you'll need to get all the way around this piece. So let's see how close my pattern is just by the ones I cut out of the 2 to 3 ounce. So I'm going to take it and line it up along this side here and press it together. Okay, just like that. And when I get down here to the corner, I'm going to kind of stretch the leather a little bit just on that one side. I'm not trying to stretch the whole gusset piece, just that one side, because I need it to stretch and bend up like that as I go around the corner. Okay? Alright, so now I got it onto the corner and I got it glued down there, and now I'm going to just go across the bottom, gluing it together, getting it to stick good. And I'm back to another corner, so I'm going to do a little bit more stretching. And I'm just stretching against that bottom part. We'll stretch the other part when we go to put it on the onto the purse front later. Alright, so we got around the second corner there, and now we're going to just go up the side here, and we do have about a 1/4 of an inch of overlap, maybe a little bit more, maybe 3/8 of an inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it and set it right along the edge of my cutting board, hanging off the side of my cutting board. If I put it up here like this, then everything's not going to be flat. But if I put it down like this, then this is going to be flat, and I can cut it off. So I'll take this area right here, and I'm just going to cut off that little bit of excess right there. Being careful not to cut my finished edge. Alright, I've got to pause the camera for a minute. When I come back, we're going to go ahead and stick the zipper into the gusset part, or into the center part. That way when we go over to the sewing machine, we have several things we can sew together all at once. Alright, so sorry about that. We had to have a little discussion here in the office. So now we need to put a zipper in this right here. Okay, again, it's a 9-inch dress zipper. Very, very common item. They can be found at any sewing or craft store or anything like that. And again, we did not include one in the mystery box because, you know, who's to say that if I send you a brown one and you make a pink purse, they're not going to go together. So anyway, so I'm just going to take my double-sided tape and put it right on the edge of the cutout in the back. And all we're doing, like I said, we're just getting everything as much as we can ready to sew all at once. Saves us a lot of time. We can go over to the sewing machine, sew all these little bits and pieces together, and then we can put the bag together. Okay, got my double-sided tape here on the back. I'm gonna remove the paper backing from the tape. And I'm going to, as straight as I can, lay this zipper down across that. And then I'll turn it over and check to see how straight I did. I didn't press that down very hard because I may have to move it still. And yeah, it's a little bit crooked. So what I'll do is I'll kind of pull it up from this end and center it, and then I'll do the same from the other end and get it good and centered how I need it. Then I'll press it down a lot harder. It'll be ready to stitch. And it's really important that you center the zipper as well as you can, because if you don't, it'll look really funny when you fold that in half and the zipper's off to one side. So, there's what we're working with. Okay? So when I fold that in half, that zipper's straight up on the top like it ought to be, and that's a good thing. So now we're going to go over to the sewing machine. I'm going to use a class 26 Cobra for today's project. I have it loaded up with brown thread, which for folks that watch a lot of my videos know that that's kind of rare. But you know, I go through phases, and right now I'm in a brown phase. So I got to pause the camera. I'll flip it around over there so that you can see what I'm sewing. And I'm going to sew this down. I'm going to sew these two pieces together, and I'm going to sew this gusset piece onto the back of this. And that's what we're going to do. So, bear with me. When we come back, we'll be at the sewing machine. Alright, here we are. Again, this is a class 26 from Cobra Leather Machine Company. It is a lightweight cylinder arm sewing machine. I love this machine. Since it's a cylinder arm, it does have an optional like flatbed attachment that you can put right here. They call it the work platform. I always use the wrong terminology for it. But anyway, I don't ever use that because I do have a flatbed machine sitting right next to it. So I realize that not everyone is fortunate enough to have that. But yeah. All right, so we need to sew the gusset onto the front of the front pocket here. So I'm just going to take it and put it right there. I need to go reverse a couple of stitches to lock them in, and then we'll go forward and sew this sucker on. My my stitch line is going to be about a little more than an eighth, but not quite a quarter. So I guess 3/32, or no, 3/16 from the edge here. Okay, and I just need to be careful, like when I'm sewing down the straight line, not a problem, but when I get down here to the edge or the corner, I need to be careful of what's underneath down here, where that gusset's folded over. I don't want to accidentally sew it to my like sew a fold into the gusset. It needs to be round. Alright, here we are at another corner, so we'll very carefully and slowly go around that, making sure that the leather's not bunching up underneath just by kind of pulling it through. When I do all these pulls, I make sure that the needle is down to make sure that my project doesn't move. I don't want it to move and screw up my stitch lengths or spacing. Alright, we're in the clear of that corner, it feels like, so now I'm just going to sew up the last side, and then we'll do our reverse stitch at the end of it to lock those stitches in. And we're going to set this piece aside for a minute while we sew the others. There we go. So there's that one. And again, we have two other pieces to sew that we got ready. One was the flap with the zipper, and the other was the front flap of the bag here. I'm going to go ahead and do the front flap piece, and I want that sew line very, very close to the edge of the overlap here. Okay, so I'm going to put it to where that is right at the very inside edge of my presser foot, and that will ensure that I'm getting a good close stitch. So I'm going to hold down the reverse lever, and I'm going to do a couple of back stitches first, and then I'm going to go forward. And I've just got that presser foot right on the edge of that leather, and that's going to make my stitch line just under 1/8 of an inch away from it. Down here at the end, so get to the end and then back stitch again. Oop, one stitch too far. Glad I didn't complete that one. So I'm going to manually get back into the last hole here so that I can back stitch. There we go. Now this piece is finished. Now I need to do the zipper onto the fold over part of the middle of the purse. This one's a little bit more difficult just because it's pretty thin leather, but we can do this. I do prefer to do things like this on a flatbed machine, but I'm not doing you any justice if I show you, a bunch of tricks on a bunch of different machines that, you feel like you need to have more than one machine. I mean, I realize that a lot of people don't even have one, so luckily it does take time to hand sew this project, but not nothing difficult about it. It just takes time. Stitching's looking good. Let's hope I can keep it that way. The reason I said that this was difficult to sew is just because being thin, it's a little bit floppy, and it's just hard to hold on to and keep it going straight. I'm going to unzip the zipper just a little bit as I go around this turn, just so that I don't accidentally hit the zipper pull, because that can damage the machine. Alright, now down the other side here. Then I'm going to go ahead and zip it back up, get that zipper out of the way again. Alright, so there we are. We're back at our original stitch, so I'm going to do a couple of stitches back over the first stitches just to lock them all in. And I'll pause the video. When I come back, we'll be back at the desk to start doing some prep work for the next sewing. Alright, back at the desk. So here is the center section that we did, and I need to take and trim the edges of my, or the ends of my zipper so that they don't stick into the seam that I have to create. So about like that. I mean, that's not anywhere near where the zipper chain itself is. It's just the excess that's on the ends. So that way I can fold this thing in half and glue it together. So let's get some glue on this. I keep saying glue. It's contact cement is what I'm using, just so you know. It's sticky and it makes things stick together. It's glue. One of the things the folks that have seen the finished one of these bags is the ladies, I guess, that would carry a purse. They've all been really happy that it has, you know, segmented compartments on the inside. And I guess I can understand that because I have the same thing in like my backpack. You know, like I've got an area where my computer goes, and an area where I put my chargers and stuff, and then an area where I put any books and papers. So I guess I understand from an organizational aspect, it's a lot easier to have compartments, and that way you at least have a better idea of where your stuff is, if not a complete idea of it. And I'm just going all the way around this piece because it's going to fold in half and glue to itself, stick to itself. Sorry, Jenny left the room and her phone is on over there. Alrighty. So I got that glued. I'm going to let it set up for a moment and we'll talk about what we're going to do after that. Okay, so we have two of the larger gusset pieces. Alright. These are 1 3/4, I think, or maybe even 2 inches. 2 inches wide. And they are designed to hold the front part to the center part to the back part, and then the back part already has the flap which comes over. Okay, so we're going to first glue them to the center part, basically front and back, and glue and sew all that together at once, and then we'll come back and we'll put the front part on it, then we'll come back and put the back part on it. The reason I'm saving the back part for last is because it's got the flap, and it's just a little bit harder to manage. If I sew that part on first, then I've got to worry about that big old flap while I'm doing other things, or while I'm sewing the front on and stuff like that. Now, before we can do all that, or before we can even do any of that, we need to figure out where we're going to put our pocket on the front. So all I did is I turned it upside down so it would lay flat, okay? And I'm going to take my ruler here and I'm going to center that 1 inch from the bottom of the purse, okay? So there it is. That is centered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scratch awl. As soon as I locate my scratch awl, where did it go? There it is. Alright, I'm going to take my scratch awl and I'm just going to mark 3 sides of this just up under that. And that is where I'm going to end up gluing the front gusset onto it and then sewing. Okay. So there we go. I now have a little line right here that I can follow when I'm putting my glue on it. But first I'm going to kind of prep this by bending that out and pre-stretching it so that I know it's going to go onto there. Okay. Same over here in this corner. Just kind of pre-stretch it out a little bit. And we're going to put some glue just on the inside of that line, just a little bit. And then we're going to put some glue on this side of this gusset piece. And we'll let those set up while we stick that center portion that we just put glue on together. Okay. Now, if you used a finish that is really shiny and makes this kind of slick, you may want to sand that little area where you're about to put the glue so that it'll actually stick. My finish is not very shiny at all, and I don't think it's going to cause a problem, so I'm not worried about it. That, and I like to live dangerously. So I'm just putting a little bit of glue right inside that line. There we go. Now I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the other side of this gusset. I will tell you this, I've already, I'm past the point of no return because I just put glue on this, but you want to burnish the tops of this gusset. Alright, so I will work very hard to try to do that later. I will go ahead and dye that cap right there because that's the worst part. But yeah, you'll want to burnish the top parts of this gusset before you actually do this. I apologize for not thinking of that beforehand, but I am a human and I make a lot of mistakes. Alright. So we got that glue on there, and I'm just going to turn around and grab that dauber that I didn't throw away because it's got enough on it to just do that little bit right there. And then the other side's already kind of dyed, but I'll still hit it up a little bit. And then I'll just burnish it later on. It'll be difficult, but that's okay. This thing has glue all over it now, so I don't want to risk it. Alright, now I'm going to set this thing to the side so that all that glue can set up. And I'll grab the last thing that I put glue on because it's already set up. So, this thing, I'm just going to very carefully fold in half, line up the edges, and stick them together. And I'm not going to stick hard until I've got it all the way glued together, just to ensure that I've got it nice and straight and it's not crooked or anything. And that looks pretty good. Nothing that a little bit of edging and finishing work won't take care of. Alright. Now, once again, I'm going to take this zipper and I'm just going to kind of put it somewhere else, like kind of toward the middle. That way when I sew all this, that'll lay a little bit flatter, because otherwise with this up here, it's kind of bulky right here, and it'll be hard to sew right there when I get the gusset pieces on it. Okay? So there we go. Alright. Now, got that glued together. We're going to go back to this because it's probably set up enough. Not quite. Alright. So, the next thing we have to do is glue this gusset, starting right here, right at the top, down all the way around and back up to the other side. Okay, so we're going to do it just like we did that other gusset piece. and it will reach, it should be just about right if we're using the right thicknesses of leather. This gusset piece is 2 to 3 ounce. So, when gluing these to the centerpiece, not a big deal about measuring my centers, because I'll start at one end and go around. But when I'm putting the front and the back on this, I will want to start in the center so that when I'm done, it's not crooked. Crooked is bad. Alright, so I'm just going around the edge of this piece. Doesn't matter if I'm doing the front side or the back side or whatever. You do have to think about this though. When you look at this piece, it's not quite as ambidextrous as you would think, because you have to imagine if this purse was sitting in front of you, like let's say you're at the cashier stand at the store or something, and this purse is sitting in front of you. If you are right-handed or left-handed, then the zipper should kind of accommodate that. So like right now, the zipper is facing me if I were what I would think would be left-handed, because I can reach up here with my left hand and pull it back and no worries. But 90% of the people out there, to include the person that's getting this bag, are going to be right-handed, and so I'll try to remember to make sure that when the zipper's closed, the tab is on the right side, or sorry, the left side, when this thing's facing me. Alright, so I put some glue on that. Now I'm going to put some glue on the back side of the gusset piece here. I've just got it kind of hanging off the edge of my bench, so I can do this kind of quickly. The video's getting lengthy, and I know y'all get tired of listening to me. Alright. Now, as always, I'm going to set that aside for just a moment, and I'll glue up that other piece there, and then I'll come back and glue this piece up. Alright, so here we are with this. I am going to try to center the bottom and stick it just barely, and then I'll work my way up around the sides. Okay, and it helps, you can just fold this sucker in half, just like that, and that'll help it to lay down while you stick it. So I'm going to temporarily stick it right there, check, and it is not quite centered, so I'll pull it off and move it over just a little bit, and I'm going to do it again. Okay. Now I'm just going to work that gusset folded out around that corner and make sure it's good and stuck to the front of the bag here. Okay, and I'm still not pressing this totally down yet, because when it's done, I'm going to kind of hold it out and make sure that it looks straight to me, because it doesn't always. Okay, got it stuck down, my edges look good and straight. Now I'm just going to kind of hold it up and make sure that it looks like right to left, it looks good. I may even actually measure it. Alright, according to the measurement, we're about 1/16 of an inch off center, and I need it on center. I really do, because when that flap comes down, the flap is going to be centered. And if this is not centered, then the flap won't match up to it. If you look, see the curls of the flap in the corners come down, and they're the same width as this pocket. So if I don't center this pocket, then not good. Okay, so what I need to do is just bring this side of it out just a little bitty bit. That should have it. Now if you have any glue seepage on the outside here, wait for that glue to dry before you try to peel it off. Okay? Alright, now we're good and centered. That piece is good to go, it's ready to sew. That rhymed. Now, this gusset piece. Once again, we're going to start up here at the top. And we're not going to do it backwards like I was about to. I'm going to start right here at the top, and we're just going to work our way around the bag. When we get to the corners, we're going to stretch it out just like we did the smaller one a while ago. Okay, so that's what a corner will look like, and once we sew it, we can kind of even some of that out a little bit, you know, as far as where it looks like there's a crease there. But you just don't want to sew a fold into it. Like if that folded over like that, I don't want to sew that bubble in there because it's not coming out. Over here to this other corner, stretch and pull a little bit, get it around there. Straight up the side. And we do have about a ½ inch of overhang here that we're going to have to trim off. That's okay. I'd rather it be ½ an inch too long than a 1/16 of an inch too short. Alright, so just like I did a while ago, I'm going to pull that zipper back like I told you to do earlier, and then twist it again. And I'm going to trim that little bit off right there, being careful not to cut my zipper. There we go. Alright, I'm going to pause this for a minute, and when I come back, we're going to have the other side. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to glue it to the other side. Alright, so yeah, it'll be the exact same procedure. It's just I'm doing it on this side, and then we're going to be close to ready to sew. Alright folks, unfortunately this is all I'm going to be able to get done today. Tomorrow we'll do the final assembly of the bag, and we'll put the D-rings on it for the strap and things like that. But unfortunately I have a prior engagement to do a live video here in a little bit, and so I have to stop this video. I'll go ahead and upload what I've got so that you can work along at home. I will tell you this, I thought about it after the fact. I should have done this edge right here before I glued it to the next piece. I can still do it, it'll just be a little bit more difficult to avoid the edge of this. But I'm going to wait until it's sewn on, since I'm already this far in. I'm going to wait until it's sewn on to do it, because I don't want to break my glue seal. Break my glue seal and rip it off there and have to remeasure it and put it back on. So, until next time, I'm Aaron Heiser of Maker's Leather Supply, and we're about to do some tooling on some fan art and build a roper wallet over the next 2 days on live videos. So, have a great day.